Welcome to the Talking HealthTech podcast. My name is Peter Birch. With me today on the show is Ian Burgess, CEO of the MTAA, who is the national association representing companies in the medical technology industry in Australia. G'day, Ian. How are you going?
Thanks, Pete. Great to be with you.
It's great to have you again on the show. I feel like it's been a little bit since we've had a conversation on the podcast. There are a few episodes that people can go back and check out and learn a little bit more about the MTAA in the back catalogue there. And also we've had some discussions at some of your awesome events that go on, which we'll talk about in a bit. But since it has been a little bit, it might be good just for you to set the scene a little bit more for those that are unfamiliar with the MTAA or trying to understand where this fits in, the impact it has in the community. It'd be great to hear that from you. So help us out.
Yeah, we're the peak body for the medtech industry in Australia. So suppliers, manufacturers, distributors of medical technology. And what's medtech? Medtech is getting broader and broader every day. So it extends from if you like, more traditional or more simple types of medtech, or in TGA terms, class 1 devices. So even the tongue depressor is a type of medical technology. Yeah. So through to hip and knee replacements, pacemakers, neuromodulation, so devices that are interacting with the nervous system and the brain, to provide a therapeutic benefit for patients or treatments. And then you overlay all of that with digital technology, so digital medtech. And medtech is increasingly either digitally enabled or digitally connected in some way, or just a straight out digital application. So software as a medical device, for example.
Yeah.
So there's enormous innovation that has always been underpinning our industry, and that's just getting more and more, Moore's law, getting faster and faster.
Yeah.
And that makes it very exciting.
It does. And, I'm glad you brought that up because, what was maybe 5-10 years ago when it was a little bit easier to say, well, digital health is the software and medtech is the devices and never shall the two meet in the middle. And then increasingly, they're just as important to each other, and it's all part of the one thing. As more devices are connecting in with the broader ecosystem, and as the challenges within the healthcare ecosystem continue to get more complex, and technology's got a huge role to play with that. So it's great to be able to kind of dive into that a little bit more, because I want to understand from your side and your members, and I guess from the medtech perspective, where you see some of those challenges and what that kind of landscape has been like over the last couple of years and where we're at.
So in terms of our members, they range from startups, Australian SMEs, mid-sized companies, through to the large global brands, the multinational medtech companies. And we're probably pretty unique in Australia in terms of that long tail of SMEs that we have in the industry. And so that's reflected in our membership profile. And we do have a very strong, thriving local innovation ecosystem. And that's for many reasons, including we despite the challenges that you're just inferring to around our health system, despite the challenges that we do have a very good quality health system. We have a great workforce in terms of healthcare practitioners, doctors, nurses. We have a great academic ecosystem in terms of R&D, and great expertise within the medtech industry in terms of that R&D, translation, commercialization through to go-to-market manufacturing and successful medtech product, that whole journey. It is an exciting space, and the challenges that you're asking about in terms of what's impacting on our health system. So we've got health system challenges, and at a high level, it's the challenge on our health dollar, how much we spend as a country on health, and we actually do pretty well, even though we as a perhaps in media and some government and community discussions, we're always complaining about what we spend on health. We if you compare us to, for example, the US, we spend less per head of population. We have better outcomes, and so we rank internationally really well. But it's not necessarily sustainable, and that is the key issue that we have to address in terms of how do we improve our current health system and maintain that sustainability going forward. And that's where there's a number of broader health reform pieces that come in. And it includes, first of all, treating health as an investment, not just a simplistic notion of we've got to cut costs, and we've got to cut costs today in this area of health, without factoring in the broader value that health expenditure can be providing. And it can be all types of value. It could be for a medical technology. It could mean that a patient is out of hospital quicker, so there's less days in hospital, which has obvious savings of costs. It could be better outcomes for the patient in terms of better outcomes from that procedure that they've been through and the technology helping their rehab. It could be then returning to the workforce sooner. So broader value being provided to our economy through that healthcare and the role that Medtech can play in that. But we don't, in terms of our processes for assessing both healthcare, but particularly our medical technology, we don't properly value. We don't consider the value that's provided by that technology and by that therapy. And it's very much, when I say we, it's the government processes. It's how we as various levels of government assess and reimburse medical technology. So we need to improve the methodology, but it's even deeper than that. It's, as I said, we need to be looking at investing in health, not as something we've just got to be cutting cost. Simplistic cost cutting means that we are leaving enormous potential value on the table. And that's value to patients in terms of better outcomes. It's value to our health system, and it's value to our economy in terms of those broader economic benefits that can be provided. And it's we released a Value of Medtech report last year, which quantified and analysed that value that medical technology provides across each of those areas for patients, for our health system, and to the economy. And at that economic level, it's 17,000 jobs, 51,000 when you include those that supply and support the medtech industry. It's $5.4 billion contribution to GDP. So it's a on the whole scale of the economy, we're a pretty niche little piece, but we're a critical part of our health system. And the value that's provided, the workforce that we have, highly skilled workforce, majority are first degree qualified, and a substantial of those are postgrad quals, and the support that's provided throughout the whole health system and at every step along the patient's journey. Yeah, that's what Medtech is all about. It's not just supplying a device or supplying a product. It's how to enable that device to be used in the right patient at the right time by the right clinician with the right support. And that could be technical support, could be education and training to ensure the best possible outcome for that patient.
Talking my language there, I think that having the right care available for the right patient at the right time and with the right clinicians, that's mission critical across the ecosystem. And the point that you highlighted at the start there about how Australia's got a great healthcare system, particularly comparative to the rest of the world. However, it's not sustainable, and it's something that we've seen in healthcare. That when we have a burning platform and a sense of urgency, we can respond really quickly. But when something is, we need to invest or we need to build in it, we need tangible things to put in front of the right people to demonstrate, look, this is something that we need to double down on now. And I think that's great that you've got that, the example of some of those tangible results and the outcomes and the impact that and the value that the medtech industry brings to Australia. So hopefully that then helps us to continue to build on some of these things. And an important part of that is bringing the community together and bringing those stakeholders together. And I know that's one thing, it's one of the many things MTAA does well, because you've got your conference coming up. I'd love to learn a little bit more about that and what we can expect.
Yes, so we have our annual conference at the International Convention Centre, that's in Sydney, coming up on the 23rd and 24th of October. The theme for this year is Connected Today, Transform Tomorrow. So it speaks to that ongoing work around innovation, connection, the increasing focus on digital health, and the innovation of medical technologies today, and embracing a health system that's being transformed by digital health and ongoing innovation in medtech to deliver better patient outcomes and deliver value for Australia in the future. So, like last year, our conference will be programs, an exciting jam-packed 2 days. We've got leaders of industry, key opinion leaders from across government, and also the wider health sector, and globally from across the world. So it's a really unique opportunity to bring together so many people with passion for medtech, and to hear the latest developments in the industry and our health sector, and also to network, share their insights, and celebrate the contribution of our industry. And coming back to your initial point, the collaboration that is critical for medtech in delivering better health outcomes for Australia. So collaborating with clinicians, collaborating with hospitals, and collaborating with governments, and collaborating with all stakeholders in our health system.
One observation I've made previously from attending an MTAA conference is that strong representation of different stakeholders, as you suggest. And, in previous years, I've noted there's particular deep dives into the need for policy reform and the changes that can be difficult to, can feel like you're kind of shouting into a bit of an echo chamber if you're doing it in isolation about, I wish this change would, what needs to happen is we need to do this. And we've all been there where, one thing we don't want to do is just have a bunch of people connecting with each other and having a therapy session about how challenging it is. You want people in the room there that can also hear that and perhaps give context and make an impact. So can we expect to see those policymakers and those that can drive some of this reform as part of that conversation at the conference as well?
Yeah, absolutely. It's all about what are the solutions.
Yeah.
So let's identify the challenges. That is important. But then what are the solutions? And what do we have to do to achieve those? So that's a core part of the conference, but really it underpins everything that we do as an organisation. Mm. And coming back to some of those challenges, we have enormous opportunity in digital health and digital medtech. The opportunity that represents to our health system in terms of delivering better outcomes for patients, greater efficiency. So not cost stripping, but greater efficiency in terms of better value, and also enabling patients to be in more control of their own care. And it's often said putting patients at the centre of their own care, and that is a very true potential of digital health. But we've got a number of barriers in the way that need to be addressed. And for medtech, there's the standard IT types of issues that have to be addressed. Data, access to data governance, standards, privacy, cybersecurity, interoperability, all of those what I call standard IT type issues. Mm. And then for digital medtech, we've also got the additional ones of regulatory and reimbursement. So regulatory in terms of market access. What's the best way to enable digital medtech to get to market with appropriate regulation, but getting to market quickly so that patients are able to access that technology quickly. And reimbursement in terms of ensuring that there's a mechanism that these innovative technologies are being funded, and it's not just being forced onto a patient as an out-of-pocket cost. These technologies will provide savings for the system and value for the system. We have to recognise that and have appropriate reimbursement mechanisms in there. And we don't really have a digital medtech reimbursement pathway in Australia. And then there's broader challenges facing our health system. I mentioned before at the high level about the pressures that we face. And then there's very specific issues. For example, in our private health system, I describe this as we are, despite the fact we have a great health system, we are at risk of sleepwalking into a major funding crisis and major crisis for our private health system. And the medtech industry has done its part in terms of driving reforms. The prescribed list sets the benefit levels that private health insurers are required to pay for medical devices that are on that list. And there's been significant reforms over the last 5 years or so, with savings that would total around $2.5 billion worth of savings for private health insurers through reductions to the PL benefit levels. But right at the moment, we have a situation where our private hospital system is under enormous financial strain. And that's a result of COVID pressures. It impacted in terms of delays in surgery. Well, no surgery, elective surgery taking place for various periods during lockdowns. The cost pressures that COVID placed on the whole health system, including medtech industry. The workforce pressures. So our hospital system and the medtech industry is emerging from that. And at the same time, the arrangements between private health insurers and hospitals, the payments haven't kept pace with those increases in costs. So that's been the key trigger for this current crisis that the private hospitals are facing, is that the payments by private health insurers haven't been adjusted to reflect the cost base. So that means that many hospitals are either operating at a loss, or their margins, their EBITDA, earnings before interest, depreciation, amortization, their EBITDA is at too low a level that they are able to maintain capital investment. So to run a hospital, these are expensive operations, and to keep them efficient, to keep them delivering the best outcomes for patients in an efficient manner, you've got to have CapEx. You've got to invest in a hospital. So that's not happening with the majority of our hospitals right at the moment. And in addition, there's a number that have gone bankrupt and gone out of business. So that's happening for private hospitals. Enormous financial pressure. The medtech industry has done its part. $2.5 billion savings through reductions in what insurers are required to pay for medical technology. But on the other hand, private health insurers are still making significant record profits. And some data released by AMA, Australian Medical Association, showed that they analysed APRA data, which is the government data, Australian Prudential Regulation Authority. So that showed that the insurer's profit over the last 4 years increased by 50%.
Yeah, right.
And at the same time, their management fees has increased by 32%. So we've got a situation where there needs to be a rebalancing and a readjustment in that share of that financial money that's flowing through to insurers. And there's a government review currently underway around that. There's a private health check that Minister Butler, the health minister, has initiated, and we're very keen to be seeing the outcomes of that to ensure a sustainable private health system. And I mentioned the medtech industry is under the same pressure. So we've had those reductions in PL benefits. So reductions in revenue of $2.5 billion since 2017, and further reductions going forward. We've got cost pressures. We've still got a supply chain that operates fundamentally differently now since COVID. The costs of supply jumped significantly during COVID, and freight costs jumped. They have come down since those peak levels, but they're still substantially higher than pre-COVID. And even in the last year, air freight increased by 50% just in that last year period. So to ensure that we can still deliver medtech when it's needed throughout our health system, companies are maintaining higher capacity in the supply chain. So that's adding to cost.
Yeah.
Along with the freight costs, along with all the other pressures that are on our supply chain. And workforce pressures, the inflationary costs that are impacting businesses broadly. So we talk about a cost of living crisis, but there's actually a cost of business crisis that's impacting on our industry. It
is interesting hearing about that imbalance within particularly the private health side, and you know we're definitely lucky in Australia to have that capability, and we need the private health sector to be able to deliver care to a lot of people. And it's great to hear the impact that the medical technology industry has had on the ecosystem, but maybe we need that funding to go the other way, not to the insurers, but there's more work to be done there across the ecosystem. We need those stakeholders involved, which is kind of been the theme of this conversation. I think in that landscape and with those challenges, you have also kind of touched on quite a few of these. In spite of all of that, it's an exciting area within the broader digital health, digital medtech ecosystem. A lot of cool innovation that's on the horizon and starting to come into practice. And I imagine a lot of that's going to also be talked about at the conference coming up too. As we round out this conversation, thinking about some of those innovations and great opportunities that exist. You've probably touched on a couple already too, but what can we continue to look forward to? And maybe where are some of the priorities of your members in terms of, building on these innovations to capture this? There's a vibe. There's the excitement about this role, generative AI, and a lot of other cool technologies too that are going to have an impact on healthcare. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, there is a lot of cool technology, a lot of cool innovation that's coming through. It's across so many levels. I mentioned we have that thriving local ecosystem, and we also have significant investment by larger global companies in Australia directly into clinical trials. A number of companies undertake their first in human trials in Australia, and they do that because of the quality of our health system and our clinical trials environment. And in that regard, we certainly welcome federal government changes that are being made to the clinical trials governance processes and the regulation. So essentially make it easier and quicker and less costly to set up a clinical trial in Australia. So we've got that cross-section from startup through to a large global company investing in Australia and investing in innovation. And that's coming back to the reform piece. That's what we need to ensure, that government policy levers are set up the right way to enable that investment in Australia. And it's great to put aside a $2.5 billion fund for Made in Australia and local manufacturing and various initiatives, and we certainly welcome those. But we've got to get the other levers right at the same time. We've got to get those regulatory pathways, the reimbursement mechanisms, those other issues with digital health that I touched on, that are the standard IT ones, interoperability standards, all of those, we've got to be addressing all of those to maximize those opportunities. Because innovation is exciting, but it is also delivering better outcomes for patients and enabling our health system to be more sustainable. So we'll hear from some innovative startups. There'll be a number of those at our conference. I would quickly mention our opening keynote speaker. He's Dr. Daniel Noir. He's founder of Streetside Medics, and he was Young Australian of the Year in 2022. And he's got an incredible story of humanity while confronted by the inequalities faced when accessing healthcare. So he brought to life a concept of free healthcare and bringing that to the streets of society's most vulnerable people, so homeless people. And he did that through Streetside Medics. And it's an incredible Australian story of how one socially conscious doctor, driven by the inequalities of access to healthcare, is making a difference to the lives of so many Australians. It's a wonderful story.
I can't wait to hear more on that one. It's wonderful at these types of events to get that inspiration around innovation within the healthcare landscape. And there's going to be a busy couple of days, I'm sure. It's all happening at the MTAA Medtech conference on the 23rd and 24th of October, I believe, at the ICC in Sydney. So I look forward to seeing a lot of the ecosystem there and diving into some of these challenges and celebrating those wins, as you suggest, and also plan ahead for this exciting future ahead as well. So, Ian, I appreciate you making the time to have a chat on the podcast and looking forward to chatting again soon. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Pete. Great to chat. And if you haven't got your tickets already for the conference, you can go to our website, Medtech Conference, one word, so medtechconference.org.au.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Talking HealthTech. Make sure you like and subscribe and share this episode with someone who might find it valuable. For more information and resources about healthcare innovation, visit talkinghealthtech.com.